We're David and Zane from Floodfall. This is our interview with FreeMetalSongs.
From your last release, the debut stuff, especially the song Hourglass, like what the meaning behind the lyrics of Hourglass?
So Hourglass, I wrote to express my struggle being able to communicate with people. That sending my words out and not really getting a response. You know, I'm a talkative guy, and sometimes that just sort of disappears into nothing. And so the words sort of trickling away, basically.
In the video for This Bitter End, we see a lot of beautiful scenery, especially the mountains and stuff. I mean, it's very gorgeous. Is that local to you guys? Or did you have to travel very far?
No, it wasn't actually that far. We live not too far from the Columbia Gorge, and the Columbia Gorge splits Washington State and Oregon State. So that was actually on the Washington side of the gorge. And Zane was there that day. He was helping out with portions of the video shoot. It's actually a great day. It was a very clear, cold, but gorgeous place. Yeah.
In our sort of pre-interview email exchange, you mentioned the lineup changes and sort of bringing Zane on as the drummer. And you mentioned that was sort of necessary. What happened there with the lineup changes?
Yeah, and I like, so we hit one of those points as a band that I think a lot of bands do hit, where we'd had a lot of fun working on the first album. It had gone, I think, better than we imagined it would go. And we had a very close experience leading up to, I guess, finishing the mixes and the mastering. Then took about a year before we could get that stuff released for various reasons. And that took us into late 2018. And then 2019 was sort of that year when most bands would say, okay, we have an album out. Let's start thinking about the next album. Let's think about touring a little bit. And right about that point, the band sort of ran out of momentum. We were split into two cities. Hunter, the drummer, was in Denver. Jake and I were in Portland. And we tried to start writing material. And because Hunter wasn't here, that's actually kind of how Zane partially got involved. Was he came in to help us in practice working on songs. So we started working on a couple of songs, and we were trying to do it differently. The first album, I brought a bunch of ideas in that we finished together. Jake brought some ideas in, we finished them together. But this album, we were trying to sit down together and write songs, and it just was not going anywhere. And I don't really think I knew why until we started talking more about what we needed to do to pick things up a bit. And Jake mentioned that he really wasn't that excited about where the band was going, that he had other things that were more important to him. And Jake's a great guy. Jake's a phenomenal musician, a great guy. It just didn't make sense to say, you got to stay. So we kind of were on the verge of collapsing into nothingness, except that for me, Floodfall is the only band I've ever had that's kind of gotten to this point where we had that kind of momentum for at least a moment. And so that kind of led to a conversation that two of us had. And what do you remember about how that one went?
Well, I mean, I remember you were sort of frustrated because you didn't have anybody to play with so much anymore. And so you were thinking about the next steps for Floodfall and thinking about where you could find other musicians to play with. And you looked at me and asked me if I wanted to be involved. And I said, yeah, sounds like fun. I mean, I'm really glad I said that. Because I wouldn't have gotten all these cool experiences if I hadn't. So.
Yeah, and things really changed after that point. I mean, I think the funny thing about Floodfall came out of some frustration that Jake and I had at the time, wanting to do music and not having the opportunity. But what we had always wanted was we wanted it to be a band, not just a little side project.
Yeah.
And part of that for me is I didn't want it to turn into a solo project for me. Right? I didn't want it to suddenly become my thing. And the beauty of Zane expressing interest in coming on board was suddenly it wasn't going to be, my own project. And in fact, that really to me is what Floodfall is, not just with Zane, but with Jakob, the producer, and Ryan, who does the videos, and Gustavo, that does the artwork. It's this crazy web of collaboration where we just, some people do certain things better than others, and the net result is something that not any one of us could imagine, right? We just kind of ended up with something that's different than was in any one of our heads.
Yeah, so it's very much been a growing process. Everything sort of just grows rather than stays stationary. So in terms of like concerts and stuff, how many gigs have you done, or with the old lineup versus new, or like what's the?
So we never got to the point where we got to do any gigs with the older lineup, because basically we practiced the material in the studio. We did some pre-production with the producer when we were still in Montana, and then we headed to Europe to record the album. And then by the time we had finished the album, Hunter was in Denver. Jake was in Portland, and at that time, actually, we were all in Germany, in Cologne. So we were completely spread apart. So, and then when we started talking about gigging again, it was end of 2019, and we all know what happened in early 2020. Yeah. It was like, okay, so here's another 2.5 year period where live music is a very strange thing, and it led to the way this second album was recorded being pretty odd as well. But yeah, that's all we've been able to do so far.
So have you played gigs with the new lineup, or are you still waiting on that?
No, we're trying to get the album out, and then we figure out what happens next.
So with the new album, tell me about what the writing and sort of start of recording process has been with that.
So in my mind, there's sort of 3 phases. There are a couple songs that will be on the album that were written really about life before COVID, right? The heart of the song and the idea predated anything COVID related. There are a few songs that are very much a reflection of what was going on in early COVID. And then there's another batch that are just kind of, okay, we're back to, let's just write some songs. You should ask Zane a little bit. Part of the magic of this album for me is that none of these songs would have happened without the collaboration, right? That every single one of these songs happened the way it did because we were working together.
Zane, what's that been like working with your dad, but at the same time, being a young musician and being in a band, and then sort of being straight onto album recording? I mean, that's quite a big thing, especially for younger musicians. I mean, you're with established and experienced musicians, and you're coming on as a young musician. What's that been like?
I mean, it was a lot at first. I've been playing music for a long time, but I've never written music until I started with him. And sort of the collaborative part is both exciting but challenging for me. So having him write a part and me sort of base my part off of that, but also add my own creativity to it is interesting. And I think I'm still sort of growing into that as a writer. And I look forward to writing more, I think. And yeah.
Has there been issues in the writing and studio process where you've sort of disagreed to a point where an idea has been thrown away, or you've not been on the same page about something?
I don't think we've ever thrown anything away in that situation. There is a third leg to the songwriting, which is Jakob Herman, the Swedish producer that did the first album with us. And on this album, we basically said, Jakob, you're part of the songwriting process. So he didn't come in until later, but once he was involved, he was very, very involved in the arrangements and in some cases reworking songs. So there certainly were moments with all of these where it's like, no, this isn't going where it needs to go. I can think of one song, another one that I think is going to be one of the better songs on the album, where we had some trouble in the middle because it was kind of going off in a weird direction. It's like, no, that's not where it needs to go. Let's pull it back. And we had some trouble with that communication, right? Trying to figure out how to get back there. But, the three of us are very, very good friends, honestly.
Yeah.
We're super close. And I think we all acknowledge that that's part of the dynamic, right? That tension is actually part of what turns the songs into something that they would never have been if any one of us just tried to write them, right? They just
yeah
in their face. Yeah.
And I think that is a testament to, and I've not heard anything with Zane on it yet because the new album's not out, but I think it's a testament that process is sort of so like defined to an extent that it's been smooth sailing. It's a testament to the quality of the musicianship and producership. That's one of the reasons why I love the first album so much. Is it's you're talent. You're a very talented musician. Both of you are in your own right. And I was when I gave the first album a listen for the first time when I was like 14. I just started getting into like metal and rock. I was like 14. I just started getting into it, and it was like, it was sort of that. I mean, I've been listening to it for the best part of 3.5 years. I think that's when the ad campaign went out, and
yeah, it came out. Yeah, late 2018 was when it came out, and we probably didn't get the ads out until after that.
Yeah, so it's been, it's I'd say about 3.5 years, and it's been I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw my most recent post, and I was like, well, I've now got this job at a web scene. I'll interview you guys if you're up for it. So it's been great to see you got another album coming out. I'm really excited for it. I've been talking to my dad about it for like since I found out like a week ago. I'm really buzzing for it.
Yeah, we are too, honestly.
I can imagine. Yeah,
we've got it'll be 12 songs, and we've got 9 of the mixes, I think, done. 3 of them are just fighting to get over the finish line. We got to get them mastered. We've got a bunch of artwork that I think has turned out really well, and we're starting to work on at least 2 videos that we hope to get done fairly quickly here. But yeah, I can't wait. It's been a long haul.
Awesome. So how's the sound, like the vibe of the band and the sound changed with the lineup change and with time?
What do you think, Zane? Any thoughts?
I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it's different, right? Because the lineup's changed a bit, but it still feels like the same band, because I think you are a core of that. But it's definitely unique, right? It's new. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Floodfall has always been a little strange in that, I have my roots in classic hard rock, heavy metal, but I've been an oddball for many years in that I actually follow through the newer styles, right? I was into hair metal, I was into grunge, I was right all the way through. And so all of that is part of what I bring into the songwriting process. I also am a huge fan of vocals, singing. So I think from the first album, there's not a lot of growling on there. There really isn't any. There's a little bit of gravelly stuff on To the Sun, but so that's not really my thing very much. And to take that a step further, what I really like is stacked vocals, right? Big harmonies,
Yeah.
a la Queen, and and so I think if anything, there's more of that on the album. We were able to put a lot of time into the vocals on this one, more than we were able to put into the first one. There's probably a little more variation in arrangement from song to song, because the other thing is Jakob, the producer, was involved in these much earlier than he was the ones we did on the first album, and we've had way more time working on them together. So that's the one difference. Maybe the one trickier part of this was getting your drums recorded.
Yeah.
Right. There
were a lot of people involved with that, which I'm very grateful for Jakob, because I don't think the songs would have come out as amazing as they are now without him. Because with me being a new writer, sort of stumbling over certain things, making things sort of blend nicely, is really thanks to him. And sort of adding some flair to it as well is also unique to like his help with a lot of it. So I'm really grateful for that. But then we had a second producer, well, an engineer, right, work with us for the recording. Because of COVID, we did the recording in Portland with Jakob over Zoom and another engineer doing all the hands-on stuff in the studio. So having essentially sort of two engineers / producers working on drum parts and some guitar, it sort of added up to a very like a big mix of like ideas and stuff.
Yeah, it was tricky. A place called the Howland Halls on the east side of the river here. That really nice space, big room for drums, and we made adjustments to try to make life a little easier for Jakob in Sweden. So we would be up at 7 a.m. We would be in the studio at 7 a.m. here, so that he didn't have to stay up too much past midnight in Sweden. And he'd be sitting, he'd be on a laptop in a Zoom call, right? And I mean, he and Zane tuned Zane's drums with Jakob in Sweden, going, we still need to work on that one, right? So there were a lot of things that took longer and had a different rhythm than they would have had if we were all sitting in the same space at the same time. But I think we knew that was going to be tricky, and we gave it extra time. So we spent a lot of time on the drum tracks, and that's what allowed us to get the 2 extra songs done that we wouldn't have had. There are a couple songs that we wrote in the studio basically that happened the last 3 days.
Well, that's awesome. So it was very partially part of it. It's been a COVID album, sort of like a mix between COVID and in person.
Yes,
Yeah,
very much.
definitely.
I did the lead vocals in Sweden, did all of the backup vocals and all of the rest of the guitars here in Portland myself, sending them back and forth with the producer. It's just been lots of that. Yeah.
After the album release, what's next? Another album, maybe a tour? Like what's something that you want to achieve in the near future?
You want to answer this first?
After this experience, sort of starting my writing experience, I definitely want to write more, and I want to make more music. So I think, to me, I definitely want to maybe work on another album, but at least write some other stuff.
Yeah. And my ideally, if we do another album, what I would like is for us to be able to just go into the studio together and do it. Maybe not all at once, but at least, in big chunks. I'd also love to figure out a way to get us playing live to some extent. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, right? Would that be, doing select gigs here in Portland and making them available to other parts of the world? Does it eventually mean we, maybe my wildest dreams, maybe we go and we record the next album back in Sweden, with Jakob, and we do some gigs in Gothenburg while we're there. I think it's part of that, and then see where it goes. But I think it's kind of play it by ear at the moment. We just don't really know enough yet to know.
What date's the album release?
I'm thinking sometime in March, the way things are going. We're trying to get those last 3 songs wrapped up. Once that happens, then I have a lot more confidence. Part of the question will be, do we release the album without the videos, or do we release the album along with the videos? So there's some timing things there that may be a factor, but I don't know. It feels like we're getting close enough now that I say hopefully by sometime in March we'll have something out there.
Thanks, guys, for the interview. I hope I can see you at some point in the UK or Europe soon. Fingers crossed. And when that album comes out, we'll do a review and probably like maybe another short interview about what the reception's been like a few weeks afterwards. Sort of talk about that again. But yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.